If I hold this up,
and
can you see
whether
okay?
that is women attacking women or anyone attacking women, picking the video apart for fun and sometimes just saying, insulting the person making the video for fun, sometimes insulting them specifically on like what they look like and what they're saying, or saying that they don't have a right to talk about what they're talking about. And you especially find that within like the genre, like different genres. So it's like a women gamer, for example, or a women talking about sports in general, that sort of stuff. But comments are the place where you see that most clearly, and so it would be, I think it's the most obvious place.
Yeah, just deliberately trying to make you feel unsafe in any way that they can, because that comes at you through emails, like messages on various platforms. Just generally, it's a lot of the time it's not just a trolling hate comment. It's like specifically, I want you to feel fear. That's very.
I would say like the general marginalization of women across all kinds of social and video platforms, and just a continuation of the complete lack of diversity on these channels.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess what I would add to this is, it seems like for women, you're very limited in what you're allowed to do on YouTube without facing a lot of criticism. People want you to do beauty videos, and there's no problem with that, but if you try to stray from what people find acceptable for women to do, then you are either imitating someone who's already been successful, because there can only be one woman who does comedy or, you know, science or gaming, or you end up, I don't know, I guess people just don't expect you to be well-rounded, and I find that it's difficult to make videos when there's so many people just screaming at you like, you're doing the wrong thing.
Also, if you do makeup or beauty, then a lot of the time people say that's a feminine thing, that's not really YouTube, it's a sideline to the rest of YouTube, which is just because apparently it's a feminine thing, so that's not real.
Let's talk about the comments for a sec. I think that's always, like you said, it's an ongoing issue. I really like, I think it was you, Emily, yesterday, you sort of framed it as the comment section for YouTube for content creators. It's kind of like your workplace environment. This is where you go to work. Your audiences in some ways, like, you know, they are telling us what they like, what they dislike, and we want to make our audiences happy. So in terms of the comments, we can talk a little bit more in depth. I would love it if any of you are comfortable sharing your experiences with the comments, how you deal with the comments, what's the best things that we can be doing as creators and as a community to make that a less vitriolic environment.
Speaking of, like I love telling my audience how to deal with the new people who come in to watch, because the main thing that's always in my comments, are you a boy or a girl? I need to know what's in your pants. I have to know because I like you, but then I don't know because what's in your pants matters. Okay? So I'll either make a video explaining that to people, and then my audience will continuously have me backed up when someone comes in with the ignorant state of mind. So, but you know, they come at it more lighthearted, like, listen, she's a woman. She likes watermelon. And you know, like that's how I've been taking care of it, like over the years, and it's worked out so far. So now when someone new comes in, my people are the compliment gang. Like, listen, you don't go in on her dimples, okay? But and they just, I love it. That's how I take care of it.
Yeah, I definitely think talking about it in any form, like in video or online somewhere, Twitter, whatever, about the kind of comments that you're getting, and just publicly talking about it, but not highlighting specific people because it's such a cliche, but they want the attention. And if you start rewarding the attention, I think Ali was saying this yesterday on the panel, if you start rewarding the bad comments, then they like, that's how they get attention, so they get more.
I think also making sure that we all jump in the comment section. I know a lot of the time you might not have something to say about a video, but positivity really helps. And if you're seeing a lot of negativity, you don't even have to respond, but just getting in there and making sure that you're reinforcing the positive messages, so that it's not just a wall of hate for the content creator or for any audience members who come into that and want to have a discussion.
Yes.
I think there's like a general consensus that we don't ignore ignore our comment section. It is so easy to avoid that, is what I think Lexi called the war zone yesterday when we were talking about this. It's very intimidating to go into that, knowing and anticipating those kind of comments. So like just having that general fear that we know they're going to be there is like that's the worst thing. So addressing them head on and having a community of supportive other creators who kind of share in these sentiments, it's a really important and encouraging aspect of dealing with these things.
So I think we all agree the comments are terrible for women. It's really bad and it's really striking. Trish was talking yesterday about being on SourceFed, and they make very similar content. The girl team would, and then the boy team would make, another video, and people just tell Trish and Lee to, shut up, and like all these terrible slurs, and it's really bad. I'm wondering what you guys think about how those comments are compounded by someone's gender presentation, if they present in a really masculine or feminine way, also by the color of their skin, their sexual orientation. Does it affect the nature of the comments? And how can we help to support people who are being even further marginalized?
I'll start. Hi, okay, I'm black. And YouTube is really not, I've realized it, obviously over years of being there, but it's not YouTube, like the platform doesn't create the division, society does, right? So the worst comments I get on YouTube are not about being a woman, and I've realized that like it's hard for people to see like a black person as more than a black person. Like I can't be a black woman because thank you, you feel me? That's what I'm saying. It's not that I don't receive misogynistic comments. I wear makeup in videos. I'm often asked to do hair tutorials and the like, and sometimes I do. But it seems that the negativity is there regardless of the content of the video. And luckily, I've grown up on YouTube quite a bit. I feel like I was lucky enough to mature and be like, grow that thick skin and not be afraid of that. But it is worrisome to think that there are girls who are young who, are still finding out who they are, and they're being told all these negative things about themselves that just aren't true. But I think that's just a systemic thing. I think, racism doesn't go away because we're on the internet. And I think we just have to be diligent in addressing it when it happens. Luckily, YouTube has like a filter system now, so you can filter out the comments and make it a little bit cleaner for your audience to see, but it's not great.
I think most of the negativity that I receive on videos is sexual, which is definitely a problem specific to, well, I'm not saying it's entirely specific to women, but I think it's particularly an issue for women who present themselves as feminine. It's not just sexual in ways that people could construe as compliments either. It's oftentimes violent. If they hate what I'm saying, they want to tell me what kind of violent sexual activities they would do to punish me for having the audacity to speak on the internet. And I think it's really hard when talking to male content creators to get across what's different between troll comments and really pointed, sexually based comments. If someone tells me I'm fat, great, I'll move on with my life. But if someone tells me I'm so fat they want to hurt me, it makes me a little more afraid. It makes me not want to announce when I'm going to an event. It makes me want to make sure no one knows what state I live in, and that's really a gender-specific issue.
Does anyone want to speak to sexual orientation or gender presentation on the other side?
Am I the only gay one here? No? Okay, cool. I don't know, like the things that feminine women go through is something that I don't specifically go through because I'm more masculine. So, I don't know, like I don't get, if the hate is intentional, I take it as comical because of how they say it. Like, I remember reading a comment where the dude was like, you would look so sexy with a wig on, with some lipstick, maybe some Chanel cologne, because your breasts look great. Like, it's just, that's how I read it. I read it in that voice. say something like that. It's like, here's this person that I don't know trying to make like decisions on how I live my life. Okay. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time and your view. Awesome. Hit the like button on your way out. But yeah, like the problems that they face is I can't so much relate to it because of how non-feminine I am. It sucks how feminine women are way more attacked on YouTube sexually than someone who has like this beautiful big belly and just a different state of mind and a sense of humor. But yeah, I don't really know how else to add to that other than it's kind of a little difficult to relate.
No, totally. Why do you think that happens? Why is it that particularly a super feminine gender expression is really targeted for all of this really sexual, violent, particularly sexual comments?
I think we just grow up in a culture that reinforces that femininity is evil, and even if that sounds like a dramatic statement, if you really look into it, it's abundantly clear. We learn from childhood that femininity is weakness and weakness is bad, and it becomes something that people want to attack because it's easy and it gets you laughs from other people, and it's just something so part of what we grew up with that it's really difficult for people to look at it objectively and be able to take themselves back from the entire culture and realize that what they're saying and feeling, it's been reinforced for years.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially the idea that it's easy. Like, we are so surrounded by pictures of women everywhere constantly to the point that we tune them out and block them out. We don't realize how many of those images we're consuming, and that kind of like our reactions to them, like seeing those pictures, are ingrained in us, completely ingrained in us, to a point that we don't think about it. And obviously, YouTube is a huge extension of that because it's a visual platform, and people just take that and extend that to YouTube itself.
I don't know if this necessarily fits into the answer to this question especially, but like as somebody who's a science communicator and scientist on YouTube, I feel like I can't even talk about my image on my channel or my social channels without that somehow compromising the value of my educational message. People ask me every single day how I do my hair, where I get my clothes, where I get my earrings and my accessories, and I have made a conscious decision to never answer those questions publicly, because I'm so afraid that once I start like letting in that side of my image and my personality, that people will no longer care about the educational message, and maybe I'm delusional, but I think my insecurity in that regard is totally a product of the society I grew up in. And I find that really difficult. Not a thrift shop, by the way.
So I think you're all touching on some really important shared experiences that women on YouTube have. If you were able to, in this theoretical world, if you could talk to every woman who is thinking about making YouTube videos, who's aware of kind of the challenges that women face when they make content, what would you tell them? What do you think is the most important message for them to hear about being a content creator? I know that's a really hard question.
I already have an answer. I think the most important thing is to realize that what people say about you on the internet does not inform who you actually are.
Hey.
It doesn't matter if 100 people say, you're this or you're that, or they're trying to tear down, the hard work you put in, because it's not easy work. Take the good. I think if the bad is not constructive, then you have to be, just sure of yourself and know that what you're doing is something you're proud of, and to just don't get caught up in the bullshit.
You've got to so value like your inherent individuality and personality, and like you can't compromise that for people who don't know you. They're seeing a very finite, what we put on the internet is such a tiny percentage of the rest of our lives, and people on YouTube, because of like the way the platform is structured, and we have like these great two-way conversations, it invites people to assume that they know everything else about you, and therefore can provide constructive criticism when they really don't have any idea. And so just remembering that is so important.
I think it's important to hold yourself to the standards that you would hold boys to of your age, because because I think girls are often told to be afraid of looking like attention whores, are told to be afraid of having opinions. You don't want to come off as harsh. You might want to make videos, but you don't want to make any videos that people won't necessarily love for certain reasons. I think that if you would not tell your male friend not to say something, then you should be able to say it too.
All I gotta add in is just be you. This is coming from a person who had a hard time trying to discover who she was for a long time. And once I found that out, it's the best feeling in the world once you finally discover who you are and you roll with that shit. Sorry. I'm highly inappropriate.
But on top of what you just said, I mean, I think it's a lot more rewarding when people say nice things about who you actually are. I think it feels very, you can't feel the positive when they're just complimenting stuff that is, you know, superficial or like not who you actually are. So the more you put yourself into it, I think the more you get back.
I would also say, if possible, I know this isn't always possible when people start out, but if possible, find other women who are starting out at the same time or who, you know, already have a channel, because that is a great way to support each other, go into each other's comments, support each other's videos, share each other's content. The supportive networks of women on YouTube are absolutely amazing. And if you guys want to find some, there is a great Tumblr called Fuck Yeah Female YouTubers. and it's absolutely wonderful. And that's a great resource as well for finding other people who make the stuff that you want to watch, you want to experience, and things that you want to share as well.
I think another important point is that oftentimes girls feel like there's only one or maybe two ways to be a girl, and that you have certain qualities you have to follow, and if you want to be a female YouTuber, you have to emulate the other female YouTubers. And not that that's necessarily a problem, because boys do that all the time. But just think about how in movies and in TV, how few female characters there are, and how they're all so similar. You individually are not someone crafted by a board of male writers at the WB. So you're so valuable.
Question. I want to talk for a second about body image. I know that being a female YouTuber and being on camera all the time for my job has definitely wreaked some havoc on my self-esteem and the way I see myself. I'm just wondering, has being on camera for your job and becoming a YouTuber affected your self-image in any way?
Definitely.
Yes.
And how?
Yeah, I mean, when you have people commenting on what you look like, and when you vlog over a longer period of time as well, commenting on how much weight, for example, you gained and lost, you're like, why? You say these things, why? Yeah, so it's very difficult, and it's part and parcel, I think, of learning how to deal with these comments. But it is something that can really get to you, and so yeah, I don't really know what the solution is there. I don't know what the solution there is, other than just, you know, all the things that we can do to tackle comments and things. But it is, again, just knowing that these people are so ridiculous. They have no right to comment on your body. They have no ownership over your body. And your body belongs to you. And we are so lucky to have bodies. And just like, oh, it makes me so cross, though. When you see these comments, I'm like, go away.
I absolutely I dress a little differently than I did before I started YouTube, but I can say with 100% certainty that when I found that I was going to be doing this channel with Hayley Green, I went out and bought a compacted foundation. I never shaved my legs, I never shaved my arms, and then so all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna be on the internet, I need to look the part, essentially. And so I've started wearing makeup and started doing my hair differently. And it's just now I own that. Now I'm very proud of the person that I am. But I hated that when I started this. It was a thought that I had to give consideration to. I'm like, gosh, I gotta start running. On the plus side, now I really enjoy running. So, yeah.
I never cared about how I looked, ever. I didn't being present in front of like this large group of people, I wanted to hold like some type of standard. I'm like, okay, if I don't like wearing makeup, then what else can I do to look at least a little bit presentable? So then I started thinking about fashion. Crap. Nothing fits. Okay. But you know, and then I just started upkeeping myself after a while, making sure I have like a clean haircut at all times, making sure my eyebrows are nice and snatched. Boom. But it doesn't. But deep inside, it still doesn't matter to me if I want to vlog and I look ratchet and just snot just all everywhere. I'm gonna do it because I legit don't care. But if I'm trying to present myself, I do care about my appearance now more than ever because of this new profession, and like I don't know who's gonna watch it. Like Russell Simmons can watch my video and be like, she's dirty but great. You know? So that's what I think about now. But do I care? Hell no. I don't care.
I would say I became more aware of it joining YouTube. I mean, obviously, like my whole life I have cared what I look like. I live in America and I'm told constantly what is wrong with me. But I think
There's nothing wrong.
Obviously.
But I mean, I think, and we all feel it, we all see it, like even at conventions like this, there are people who look a certain way, who will always do better on YouTube because they look a certain way, and it's been deemed acceptable and better, and I think learning not to be competitive with that has freed up so much energy in my life. Like, there's no point in wasting time saying, why can't I be that girl who's getting 1 million views because God blessed her with this face, instead of just, you know, putting my head down and writing something that's hilarious. I think it's much more important that we don't tear down other women for being, you know, whatever they are. If they can find success by, you know, teaching other people how to like themselves and enjoy their own appearance, that's great. But I think it's also important to realize that there are, like in any part of society, in any part of life, there are going to be those hierarchies of people who will just get more because they look a certain way, and it doesn't take away your value. Like at the end of the day, you're not valuable, like invaluable because they are invaluable. I know, there's a word here. You're not worthless because they are getting so much praise for that.
Right, and I also think it's important to say that there's nothing wrong with being pretty, and that some of my favorite YouTubers are the most beautiful beauty gurus. I mean, I love them. But that being said, think of how many times young girls get to see someone who isn't pretty, who's smart and cool. It's awesome to be pretty and smart and cool, but there are plenty of people who are smart and cool who are just never going to get the attention because they're not pretty. And YouTube is a place where that's not necessarily a prerequisite to being heard. And if we work together and get those voices out, then you no longer have to be the flawless face to be able to have a voice. And I think that's the coolest part of YouTube, and that's why we're doing this.
But we're all beautiful, though.
Right.
We're so cute.
That society says is in the top 10 of the most beautiful people, then who cares?
And no, yeah, I won't compare myself to anybody. I am sexier than Mariah Carey.
The most beautiful of beauty gurus. I don't know, none of us here ever do really. I tried beauty for a week once, but no. The most beautiful people, they get some of the worst comments about their appearances. So it's like, even if you are, you know, the flawless, perfect face of YouTube, you're going to get some of the most terrifying, awful comments because people are going to look for the smallest possible things they can. So just be your face.
So continuing off of that, what would you say to someone? I mean, I remember I started making videos when I was about 17, and at the time I wasn't fully aware, I wasn't like self-aware about all the pressures that there are on women specifically, and yet I was acting on that a lot and trying to fulfill those roles, because you learn that your value is in how you look, and the most important thing that a woman can be is beautiful. Before you're beautiful, you can't be anything, you can't be smart, you can't be funny, you can't have any other really important attributes until you're pretty. So I'm wondering what you would say to female content creators who feel this pressure, who are feeling maybe insecure when you go to turn on the camera. I get emails sometimes like, I want to make videos, but not just I'm terrified of the comments, but I'm just terrified of filming myself.
I think, I don't know if this would help everyone. I get it quite easily, like on my channel. I don't get some of the worst hate like aimed at my appearance because I'm very privileged in that way. But I definitely, the comments that I get that talk about, like, that say that I'm funny or that I'm not funny, those are the things that matter to me. Like, it doesn't matter to me when people talk about my appearance, but it's like people who specifically focus on the content, like, that's the most important thing to me. So if you can get into the mindset that, like, what you're saying is so much more important than what you look like while you're saying it, like, that is a big help.
I used to care, and then I stopped. What is it? The standard that society places on women to look great was so preposterous to me. I'm like, so you're gonna go subscribe to her because she has lipstick? Great. Is she funny though? If she's funny, I'll subscribe. That's great. But once I started to block that out of my mind, who cares? Like, I just live this. I don't care at all how you feel, what I look like. It don't matter to me at all. If you got a problem, we can squat.
Yeah, I mean, also in general, like, it can be for pretty much everyone really uncomfortable to look back when you're editing and look back at yourself and hear your own voice. Like, I think that's a generally universal thing. It's like when you hear a recording of your voice and it sounds weird. There's some weird science thing I'm sure Hank can explain at some point. Okay, Emily can explain it. But no, that is partly a normal reaction, but that is of course kind of exploded by this feeling of insecurity that is placed on by other people. But I do think it's all about ownership, owning yourself, and just let you grow. I've definitely grown more comfortable with myself through YouTube, and if you see it as a platform to becoming more comfortable with yourself, despite a lot of the things that we're talking about today, it is possible. You can get comfortable seeing yourself on camera, and you do, I think, begin to own yourself that a little bit more.
Yeah, it's really nice when that can kind of, instead of looking at yourself and being like, whoa, you look at yourself and you're like, I look awesome. Like, because I feel good, I'm confident in what I'm saying, and like all the other comments about like appearance aside, like you start to feel good, and that is like encouraging to keep going through.
I get sick of seeing myself sometimes. Like there was a time where I was daily vlogging, I'm like, ugh, me again. Am I wearing the same shirt? But that just happens. I think that happens anytime when you're editing. You're just like, I get over myself completely. Like, I need to go find new things to do. Because if I'm with myself too much, I'll be like, bitch, you sat down on the couch and ate macaroni all day. 2 times in a row. Like, you need to go get a life. But that's the only thing I ever get sick of when it comes to it. I get sick of myself and then have to do something different afterwards. Surprise myself every day.
Beautiful. I want to eat mac and cheese on the couch with you all day. I'm going to need that after VidCon. So I want to switch gears a little bit. And I think this was a big year for a lot of conversations about consent on YouTube, what consent looks like. I see a lot of head nodding. This was a big thing this year, and it really exploded. It's a conversation we've been trying to have, and I'm just going to stop there. So I wanted to ask you guys, so for those of you who don't know what happened, there was a lot of sexual abuse that sort of came to the surface within the YouTube community. YouTubers that we all knew and loved, who were behaving in very questionable ways with mostly audience members. Yeah, mostly audience members, their fans. I'm wondering if any of you want to summarize, by the way, better than I, because there are people on this panel who are way more involved in what happened than directly involved than I am. And I want to know how you feel about how it was handled within the community. Was it adequately addressed and handled when all of that exploded a few months ago?
I think it was a really, really difficult position for a lot of people to be in, because on the one hand, people are really afraid of jumping on accusations for the fear of being sued. On the other hand, people are more afraid of treating someone's daring testimonial as an accusation when they have nothing to gain from saying something that's untrue about something so personal. On the other hand, there were people who felt like it wasn't their place to be commenting, and there were people who thought that it was exactly that person's place to be commenting. There were people who were too involved personally in the situation to feel comfortable speaking about it. And I think basically the beginning of this conversation had a lot of flaws, but it's really important that we not treat it like it's over, and we not treat it like it's something that happened a couple months ago. It's something that we're just getting started talking about. And I think as people become more aware of what has happened, people are going to feel more comfortable to be making videos about it and discussing it. And we can't necessarily blame people for taking a while to understand how to breach such a complicated topic. But now I think it's the time for us to really step up, and for those of us who have been able to read about it, learn how we're going to move forward with this and keep the conversation alive.
So what does that, I guess the follow-up to that would be, what is the ideal response? What should we be doing as a community to address this in a realistic way? I think there's a lot of expectations from people who are on viewer side. There's expectations from people who are in the industry. These are people we work for or work with. It's a complicated issue. What would be the ideal way to respond to it?
I think it's just really important to make the community a safe place for people. I think that making people feel safe and feel that we are not a community that welcomes abusers is just like, yeah, the most important thing we can be doing, and is a lot more important than honouring the hurt feelings of abusers.
Yeah, I'm on the task force that was set up by some community members, and there are a lot of really great people working there, really wonderful people trained in cases of sexual assault. And we're setting up a video series actually, and it's, I think, launching in September, and it's going to be all about kind of online harassment, sex abuse, consent, all of that sort of thing. We're covering quite a lot. And I think that's going to be a really great place to talk about it. I think we should be having these conversations all over the internet and with each other constantly. I think talking about it in a way that obviously doesn't put anyone who's experienced it in a position where they feel like they need to be pushed into the limelight. It's a very delicate situation, basically what I'm saying. But we do need to keep talking about it. We need to find a good way to talk about it and to act and move forward.
I think the most important thing is probably just to encourage people who are affected by this to come forward. I think if people felt more comfortable, we could have a real in-depth conversation about it. I think it's still very scary, and I understand that. I wouldn't force anybody to come, and say what happened to them. But I do think that just being supportive of those who do come forward and not, immediately questioning, why are they saying this? Is this true? But just listening is going to create the most change.
Also, I think it's important to remember that the fact that we're having this conversation is already proof that YouTube as a community is working better than other communities that already exist. When a lot of this started happening, I got really scared and decided briefly that I thought I was going to pull away from YouTube entirely, because I thought this is not a place I want to be part of. I don't want to have my name attached to somewhere where this happens. And as I was talking through that with friends, a lot of people convinced me that this is not a YouTube-specific issue. This is something that happens absolutely everywhere, absolutely all the time. The fact that we're discussing it is just showing that YouTube has role models and people who care and people who want to keep it a conversation. And that's why it's really important that we not let it die, because if we let it die, we're just like everywhere else in the world. If we keep it going, then YouTube is a special place where special things happen.
That's right.
The ideal situation in dealing with this is that it doesn't happen in the first place. And that kind of, to summarize your beautiful sentiment there, is just like something that collectively as a society we can work on and set a really fantastic example by doing it on YouTube. And I'm just so proud of everybody who came here today. This room has filled up, and it's just been really inspiring to see. Just look around. You all care about this. You're all empowered by this issue, and that's really inspiring to us and encouraging to us. So thank you all for being here.
Give yourselves a hand.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say about that is that I think over the past year we've shown a lot of people that they won't get away with it, and there is no way that they will continue getting away with it. And because of the amazing support that the community can have and can come together, they're just not going to be able to treat people this way, and it's not acceptable within our community.
And there's so much learning that's already happened that is just tangible. Like when people come forward and say that this experience ruined my life, there are people who say, I don't see why. And when there's someone around to educate them on that, then that is a person who now goes back into the world and understands these things. And that is a person who can be an ally to someone else who has something happen to them. And if this is something that's never talked about in school, those people carry on their lives never hearing about it. If they go on Tumblr and they can't escape it, it's something that's in their brains.
So what do you all think is the proper way to handle the abusers themselves? What should the community response be? Should they be cast out of the community? Do we need to do some rehabilitation? What do you think the best way to handle this is? Because I've noticed a mixture of things happening in all these different circumstances.
I think a lot of people's response is you can't write off a human being entirely for mistakes they've made, which I can understand because people are complex and people do horrible things, and that does not necessarily make them evil. That being said, at this present moment, when this evil is something that really needs to be showcased so that people understand exactly how wrong it is, this is not the moment to be making excuses for the person's actions. I think maybe that there are different perspectives that I'd like to hear from you guys, but from my perspective, I think this is a time to cast people out and explain precisely why. Not throw them away and never mention them again, but put them in a separate box and explain why this person is no longer at VidCon over and over and over again. Not make them a distant memory, make them someone who is a symbol for a bigger problem.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing is making it safe for people who've come out and spoken about what's happened to them. And part of that is not allowing these people who've taken advantage of them back into that space, because that is one of the biggest ways that we can protect and build on the community and make it safe for women.
I absolutely don't think that anyone is owed a platform to speak on. I don't think that we have to watch their videos. I don't think we have to, hold their hand through this. They are not the victim, and I think that's the most important thing to remember. I think those are the people that we should be looking out for, and as a community, if it is decided that, people stand up and say, they're not my friend anymore, I don't subscribe to them, you shouldn't either, those people are not bad people. They're looking out for those who were affected, and I think that that's the most important.
I don't think it's the job of the community who's been abused by somebody to rehabilitate that person.
Yes.
This is a very specific thing where, it applies to a lot of different communities, but positions of power within a community have been abused to allow this stuff to happen. It's not our job to help that person to maybe come back and do that again, so.
Great. Okay, so they did give us a little extra time because so many of you got in so late. I looked over here and I was like, whoa, everyone came in. So I want to leave a good amount of time for questions, and I want to jump into that if everyone's ready. So we'll start in the back. I see a gray sweater. Yes.
Hey.
Hey.
So a lot of my stuff is actually on Vimeo because the YouTube comments kind of freak me out already. I'm a queer woman of color who does politically charged burlesque. The few videos I do on YouTube, the only comments I get are racist, creepy, or sexist. But it kind of feels like if I want to engage with all of y'all, I need to have the YouTube comments open to engage with anything. But is there a way to get engaged? Do you still kind of ask about the comments? Is there any other way around it? Or do I just have to be like, okay, attack me, slut shaming?
That's a great question.
You can put on comment moderation, but you'll still see those comments. So it's about how you personally feel about them. So you don't owe people the comment section as well. I know you want a community, but if you don't want to approve people's comments, that's the thing you can do. You can filter certain words. So if a lot of words are coming up in your comments, you can get rid of them. I learned that yesterday. I had no idea. So there's something. Yeah. And don't be afraid to block people immediately, because I have a zero tolerance policy now. I don't think I owe people the right to sit there and tell me nasty stuff about myself. So
I think another option also is to make it clear to your specific community that YouTube comments are not safe for you and that you want to have conversations on Twitter or on Tumblr or somewhere more public. Because, yeah, places where people are held more accountable for what they're saying, you can still get the community going, you can still share the videos and talk about them, but it's no longer someone's anonymous name typing into the void. It's someone with a picture who has all of their tweets available. And that's why I really prefer Twitter to YouTube comments, and I often don't read mine because it's just a war zone.
Thank you. Right in front.
I think it's interesting that there aren't.
Gotta use your baby voice.
Oh, sorry. I find it interesting that there aren't any beauty creators on the panel. Do you think that there exists a divide between women who create beauty content on YouTube and women who create other kinds of content? And if so, why? And what effect do you think that has on our common goal of making women more comfortable?
Great question.
Great question.
I think there is absolutely a divide between beauty creators and people who create other things. And I think that even though the people who do beauty videos have more views, people seem to respect them less, which is just outrageous. And yeah, it is a flaw that we don't have any people who do straight beauty vlogs on this panel. Lex used to have a beauty channel, and so she's kind of our representative. But we really did try actually to get other voices, and sometimes it just is an odd grab bag of who ends up on the panel. But I think it's important for people who make other kinds of content to make sure people are not dismissing those certain creators. I think it's important that we have men who are able to say, even if I don't wear makeup and watch those videos personally, I support this person and I don't treat them like they're on the sidelines of YouTube when they're on the most viewed pages.
I know personally, all I do is watch beauty gurus, and I know you as well. Like we watch beauty gurus constantly, and like I talk about beauty gurus quite a lot. I don't necessarily like make collab videos with them. I don't necessarily like. Obviously, there's not one on this panel. Unfortunately, we did want beauty gurus on this panel, so it wasn't a conscious decision that we were gonna be like, no, you go over there.
If I remember right, one of the first women on YouTube panels was all beauty gurus.
Which is also a problem.
And it was it was all fashion and makeup discussion about which is fine, but in lieu of a conversation about women on YouTube, I was a little jarred by it.
Yeah, I know that there was a beauty bloggers panel, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and I don't know how that went, but they had it. In the description, it was about conversations, the reactions that beauty bloggers get specifically.
They've got their own. Oh man, it's just such a toxic environment for them.
Well, okay, I'll be quick. I think there's also there's an aspect of a monetary divide. It's much easier to get sponsorship and money if you are doing exclusively beauty content because the world still sees women as a one-track mind. So I think, even for myself, I try to avoid doing just hair videos, or I did a makeup tutorial that was supposed to be funny, and people were still like, "Oh, girl, do 100 more." I'm like, I'm not good at it. I think that there is an expectation that every woman should be good at that and also be something else. And yeah, again, like they said, there should be, but
Right over here on the left.
Should I say that? Or?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Hi. With
Big
feminism.
voice.
Okay, cool. Sorry. So obviously, feminism can be quite hard to discuss on YouTube. How do you? Because it's awesome, but it attracts a lot of problematic comments. How do you approach talking about feminism on YouTube? Do you have any tips? Because I recently talked about it for the first time, and I did got a lot of hateful and hurtful comments, and it's a bit disheartening.
Yeah, feminism is like a dirty word. We talked about this a little bit yesterday in our section.
Oh yeah, sorry. The question was, how do you talk about feminism on YouTube?
Yeah. We talked about it in our sexism on YouTube. Yeah, the thing that sucks panel yesterday, and we kind of, I don't know, Laci and I discussed it a little more yesterday. I'm like, feminism as a word kind of needs a rebranding. Because it still has this connotation that if you're a feminist, you're a hairy, angry lesbian, which is not at all. That's not at all what I meant. I just mean that. With the beauty. Shoot myself in this foot. But the beauty gurus they traditional gender roles and they're empowered? I don't understand. So I think like that in general is like just another thing that we're constantly working on, rebranding feminism.
Even though it really, really sucks to have to be the person to do it, you have to remind yourself sometimes that if you get 100 comments and 90 of them are people who hate you and 10 of them are people who never considered that before and are now going to start thinking about it, you're doing something good. I made a video that got hundreds of thousands of comments and most of them were negative, the overwhelming majority. But for every couple negative ones on a page, I'd see one that said, I guess that's a good point. I never thought about that. Could you make another video about this? And that is the reason to do it.
And on that note, I think it's really important to keep in mind there is a very angry community on the internet that seems to live mostly on the internet. I haven't actually met them in real life. I hope I never do.
Yeah.
But just keep in mind, it's like they search for feminism on all of these platforms and then just go hate read it. And they do not represent how all of the people who are watching your video are actually responding to it. It took me a long time to figure this out, and it wasn't until I actually started speaking at schools a lot that I realized people are actually listening to me and they don't hate me and they're not putting up, like, my comments did not represent the experiences people were having with my videos. So just keep in mind, you are reaching people, people enjoy your content, but most people don't comment. So just state what you think people are getting out of it. They probably are. You're just not hearing it, and that's hard, and that's why I think people should leave positive comments more, but it's something that's really important to keep in mind when you're talking about feminism specifically. It doesn't represent everyone, those comments.
Yeah, I just add to that super quickly. So this is how it works when you wake up and you get 100,000 comments and they're all like nasty, attacking, like, you hate men, whatever, blah, blah, blah. What they do, they get a link, they put it on a forum, they put it on Reddit, they put it on the Red Pill, they put it on whatever. They don't watch the video, they just storm it with comments. So again, not about your content, it's just about another problem with the internet and men, but it's not an attack on you, it's not an attack on your argument. The ones to look for are the people who are really engaging, really watching it, really sharing. Look for this.
And I would strongly encourage anyone who wants to talk about that to do it. Because the more videos there are, the better, safer our community will be. Yes, in the back I saw, see, red shirt on the left. Yes.
Hi. Sorry. Hi. I actually just did a video on feminism, and it has become my most viewed video. And I got a lot of positive feedback from my friends and family. But within 2 minutes, and I timed it, within 2 minutes, I received a very hateful comment telling me to just take a drill to my head. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to react to that. And I realized that a lot of the hateful comments that I got after that were from male individuals. And me being as a white male, I want to know, how do I get my fellow male gender, how do I get them to realize that feminism isn't attacking them so I don't receive these hateful comments, but more importantly, the females that are now standing up for themselves and coming out with these videos, that they don't receive these hateful comments, because I live by that golden rule of treat others the way you want to be treated, and I don't like it, so, you know, if I don't like it, then no one else is going to.
Who are you? So a question for those who didn't hear it is basically, how can we help men on YouTube to feel more comfortable talking about this stuff? Is that accurate? Okay.
Yeah. I think it's really important for women and men to call men out, and other women, because obviously it's not just men who are sexist. And in private conversations, it's always difficult, because obviously this is a general problem, it's not just an internet problem. But when you're socializing, I think it's so important to start calling people out, and it doesn't have to be, you know, it's whatever you feel comfortable with, but letting people know that that kind of stuff isn't okay, and especially from a friend. If you have a friend who makes like inappropriate comments about anybody, like, you know, bigoted comments, then I think it's just really important to start calling them out in private spaces, because that will change the public dialogue eventually.
Actually, let's go over here. On the right is the flower bed kind of thing. Oh, it's not flower. I can't see. Ignore me.
day-to-day life. I think for me, I had this problem with my mother. Mother's pizzas, but yeah, she does not get it. I sadly had to kind of stop attacking it head-on and on a case-by-case basis and say, see this situation here, explain why it's different for men and women in this particular situation. We have like a lot of conversation about it. Is that okay? And I find her very slowly like agreeing and coming around to all these ideas. And one day they'll like jump up behind me and be like, by the way, you're a feminist now.
I'll be really quick, I promise. I'm sorry, I have a question. Also, just don't think that you have to like convince everyone. You know, I think it's important to not beat yourself up if you can't convince people who just do not want to hear you. Like what you're doing is great, and thanks for doing it.
And just one more quick cap on that. Also, keep in mind that it's a process, like you were saying. There is no, okay, we're gonna have this chat, and now they're gonna be super down with my feminism. Just like you, Rosie, I've been working on this with my parents for years. And let me tell you, from the other side, when I was 17, I was feeling pretty hopeless about it. I'm almost 25 now, and I'm feeling pretty good about it. It's just taken like a million conversations. Give them time, give them space to process it, and it will get better. Because we're on the right side. It's logical, it's fair, it's equal, and any good human being will eventually agree with you. All right, let's go in the back over here. Yep.
Hi, how can we as creators and viewers help support marginalized voices, especially intersectional ones like trans women, color, non-binary people? What can we do?
Well, hello. Me again. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
How can we better support marginalized groups of people on YouTube, particularly trans women and women of color?
Hi. All right, there's a lot that can be done, so I'll do my best to fulfill the answer. At least personally, I've noticed that, and even at this convention, y'all are great, but it's hard for people to know that we exist. I mean, they just don't think that it's real, right? So, I mean, even here, I am constantly called Glozell, and I love her. Like, I love her to death. She's 20 years older than me. Like, you're not even looking at me. You're just like, she is the black woman on YouTube, right? Or if there's a trans woman on YouTube, they're like, that's the only one. Like, this is an outlier. I think we need to just be realistic and say, we have friends, we know people who exist like this, and we should be actively seeking it out. I think the onus is on everyone to not just look for people who look like ourselves. I mean, I subscribe to white people. Like, I don't think too much for people to sometimes subscribe to someone who doesn't look like them. But it's also systemic. I think it's great that you all let me be on your panel. But I mean, also, like, not to come down on the establishment, but like, make some special guests black people, make them trans women, make them, like, if I go to a website and I don't see myself reflected, I'm less likely to come. So I think that, you know, it's not going to change overnight, but I hear you, I will find you, and yeah, just know that if you see it, positively comment, share the stuff that you see. Don't be afraid to do that. It's not going to change if we don't change it.
Akilah was telling me the other day, and it was making me crack up on the outside and sobbing on the inside. She was saying that she was talking to a popular white male YouTuber, and he said the reason why he's never had a black person in one of his videos is because he doesn't know any. Like, he's never met one. And I'm thinking, okay, A, there are black people making videos on YouTube, and if you think there aren't, then you're not looking hard enough. And B, if you've noticed that this is happening, then it's your responsibility to find someone you like who's making content who is not in a group that's represented and get them represented. Put them in a video with you, tweet their videos, help them out, because it's not like they're not doing it, they're just not being seen.
Right? He was so aware of it. People exist in the world. He's like, I don't know any. Go what?
Yeah, I mean, it's a definite trend in this conversation, like, oh, well, the women just aren't doing it. They're just not there. And you just have to be like, actually, and give them a list. And be like, go here.
So I work at the Field Museum, and everything that you assume about curators being old white dudes is really kind of true. But if you go to the Brain Scoop, I try my damnedest to only use them when absolutely necessary. So many people who just haven't hit that threshold, that academic threshold yet. We have research associates and collections managers who are just the most diverse group of fantastic people, and like those are the people I focus on emulating in my videos. So like I'd like to think there are some, content creators out there who are really conscientious of the image that we put out on the internet. I'm not saying that I'm all internet.
I was wondering if dealing with negative comments on your YouTube videos has helped you, and like the harassment that is not entirely pertinent, has helped you find better ways to deal with harassment in real life.
I think it's made me care less. And that's like the most accurate thing. I think once you see the most absurd comments, I've been talking about this with them for days, and like I'm sure there's any, but one person commented on my nail polish being chipped. And I was just like, this is so stupid. Like, who would you ever go up to somebody and be like, your nails, like one nail was into the world to them. So like, once you realize like these are people who are literally watching your video to tear you down, you're like, oh, well, somebody said I was ugly in real life. I'm like, who are you? Get a life.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, especially for like the really superficial ones, the more dangerous ones. I've definitely become so much more confident at walking down the street. If someone yells at me, I'll tell them to go F themselves. I just do not stand for it. And there is a line there that before I kind of ignored it, fed up with it, had my head down, and that was fine because I could deal with that, and sometimes it's not safe to turn around and tell someone to go F themselves. But I feel like in those opportunities that I can stand up for myself, and I can just say no to those people, that I found my voice through YouTube for sure.
I also, this is kind of a slightly more depressing side to this, generally, because I'm threatened a lot on the internet, I do take threats seriously now in life, and when people yell stuff at me in the street, I take it really seriously, and I do feel unsafe, which is, I feel confident. I also have started telling people to go at themselves when it's a safe situation. But I take it seriously enough that I would, consider taking things to the authorities a lot quicker than I would normally. If I feel unsafe, I now take it very seriously, because when you're getting threatened all the time, it does sink in, and you do need to take that. I've just said take it seriously about 8 times. I think you get the point.
Along the lines of what Lex was saying, you also do not have to beat yourself up if you aren't at that confident point yet where it does not bother you. I've been on YouTube for 9 years, and it still really, really bothers me to be harassed. People commenting on my nail polish, screw off. But the people the serious threats are still really scary to me, and walking down the street, people harassing me is still a really big issue in my life. So I'm working towards it, and I hope someday I'll be as confident as Ruby.
That's amazing to me that you're telling me that. Okay, I've seen some absurd stuff on the internet. Like, people will go to the largest strengths to really threaten you. Like, I'm gonna cut your breast off, and I'm gonna kill your entire. Like, they go through that. Not once has anyone ever told me that in person, right?
I live in an area where women get harassed a lot. Lex stayed with me this week, and we walked down the street and counted just 1, 2, 3, 4, constantly. So it's it's bad.
Yeah, that's something that I would never get in person. Like I come from a family where we just say blunt things to each other in general. Like, ooh, your teeth is messed up right now. Right? That's just how we talk to one another. But when super threats on the internet happen, where it seems creepy, like they're like, oh, I'm gonna find out where you live. I'm gonna kill your mother. Like, whoa. You call the cops on that stuff because you are not touching my mother. I don't know who you are, but you're able to call the authorities when threats are happening to you like that. Because no one's ever said anything like that to my face. I dare you to say something. Okay?
Just something that's really quickly, I feel like one of the things that unfortunately does happen when you have the harassment on YouTube, and then you have the harassment in daily life that maybe they're not explicitly saying these things that they're saying on YouTube, you kind of associate it sometimes, and you just have to kind of recognize that fear and find the best way to deal with it. But you definitely I find myself, if I'm walking down the street to somebody else, in my head I'm thinking, are they the kind of person who tells me they want to rip me in the comments? the association you make, and it's just finding a way to deal with that. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting toward the end. We have time for one more question. Who has a good wrap-up question? You're like, is it good enough? Right here, yeah.
So, women who create content are typically have audiences that are primarily women. So, do you ever find yourselves changing the things that you want to create, or like not making an idea that you had, because men wouldn't like it, or to draw more men, or also how do you stay true to the ideas that you have, and like not care who watches your videos?
So the question for those who couldn't hear is, do you ever feel pressure to pander to a particular audience, men particularly, and how do you create content that's authentically you? Right?
What I deal with, my audience is 80% women and 20% men. Over time, it was actually 95% women and 5% men. And it all happened when I created a character called Michelet. More men started watching my channel when I decided to get feminine. And it was strange, but I didn't do it to get a male audience. That's just what happened over time. It's like, okay, that's awesome. You want to watch now. But I never changed anything about myself for that part of my audience ever.
So I have interesting demographics in the science YouTube area. I think most other of the male science hosts on YouTube, male or I mean math or science or whatever, are like 80-20 to men to women on their channels. I'm 50-50 men and women on my channel. This is kind of like a reverse response to your question, but I was talking with Derek, who has veritasium, and he was saying that, he was sharing some of this information with me, and he said, like he's tried to get more women to watch his channel, and then I kind of offhandedly said, like, Derek, you're not going to get more women to watch your channel because you're not a woman. And maybe I was totally wrong, but I feel like it's just talking specifically to the science community, like it helps so much that I'm a woman in the first place. It doesn't matter what I'm talking about. I dissect animals and do things on my channel, and like typically gross out stuff that like I don't think a lot of women feel comfortable doing because it's like associated with the male task or project. I don't know. And I don't have a really good summary to my statement other than like I don't pander to one or the other. I think it comes off with like being just a confident, possible.
I can list on one hand the boys in my community, because my community is 100% women, and then there's like the boys, and that bothers me none. Like boys, I'm okay if there's a chunk of the internet that has nothing to do with them, basically.
But pretty much what you said. The only thing that I think is important is that when we're having these conversations, I reach on my channel 80% women, and I love that. But it does mean that when we have these discussions about feminism and consent and all that kind of stuff, we're not necessarily reaching a large amount of people who need to hear that. And we were talking about this in the Sexton panel yesterday, that you guys are the people who showed up, so you're probably interested in this already. We need to be reaching the people that didn't show up and the people who don't care about that. So I think it's really important to keep sharing outside your audience, and maybe I should try hard to reach the men. I don't know.
This panel needs to be on the main stage.
Yeah.
I just want to wait for the last question. Cool. Well, I do comedy videos. I do sketches. I do, vlogs that are like making fun of pop culture. I like to think that everyone has like a very similar sense of humor. Lots of people say that the male sense of humor is what drives content, but I don't think that's true. I don't really know my demographics. I know there are more women than men, but truly, I just make what I think is funny, and I hope that people get it. And I think that at the end of the day, even if you try to pander, there's no way that you can guarantee that you're gonna have a hole-in-one and get all the men on board. But I think it's just the most important is to make what you love and see who feels you.
Totally. So we have to wrap up, but just to answer your question and to kind of sum up this panel in general, I think, is to not be afraid to make content that you love, you will find strength that you did not know you had if you come up against these things. We really want to see your faces. We want to know you. We want to support you. Thank you for coming out and supporting us. We really appreciate it.